So 0 through 1 I call lower half. All right. I'll give you a copy of these once we get these all copied on yellow pages. So this is 0 half. So notice this is unsatisfactory. So look, the difference between a 0 and a 1, honestly, I don't expect any of us to be in a 0. Simply restates a thesis or repeats provided information or provides examples that are generally irrelevant and or incoherent. Honestly, I don't see us doing that at all, okay? Let's look more at the 1. Summarizes the text without a reference to a thesis. I think most of us are going to be able to get the thesis point. Notice or, so you could have a thesis, but you could provide non-specific references to the text where, notice the next one is like textual evidence. So this is just going to be a lot of summary or paraphrasing, or the references to the text that are vaguely relevant and provide little or no commentary. So we can do any one of these and this. All right. Honestly, I don't think we're going to be in the 1. Here's hoping. All right. When I say upper half, that's this part. And yes, I understand it's a little more than a half. Math. Okay. So when I'm scoring, I'm like upper half, lower half, upper half, lower half, upper half, lower half. And that's kind of how I move through, right? So notice that we have emerging and proficient. And this is kind of similar to like the RSA rubric that we looked at. So notice both make textual references, right, that are relevant to the thesis. So this is the same. And this is where we get different. Provides commentary. So this is the commentary section. However, it repeats, oversimplifies, or misinterprets. Okay? This one explains the relationship between the evidence and the thesis. However, it's uneven, limited, and incomplete. So it could be any of those things. All right? The 4 is kind of in a category by itself. This is going to be like our unicorns. So our unicorns are magical and beautiful and rarely seen, right? That's going to be our 4s. We can get to a 4 eventually, some of us, all right? I've scored some of the old released prompts, and I have seen a few like 4s in evidence and commentary. So notice that your base score is like an 85. And remember how in the last one it was like 3.5, 1.5, 2.5. I'm just going to say plus or minus. This scale is a little bit friendlier to you. So 85 or like a 3 plus is going to be an 85 plus 3. So plus or minus is plus or minus 3. So if you get a 3 plus, then you get an 88. If you get a 3 minus, then you get an 82. With me? Okay. All right. You ready now? Here we go. Previous to Obama's inauguration, the United States found itself in a financial crisis that caused more damage than the Great Depression. On January 21st, 2009, President Barack Obama gave his inaugural speech addressing the need for a new era of responsibility. Good, so you've got your concrete. In order to restore the strength of our nation. Okay. In the first half of the speech, Obama addresses the current crisis that we are facing. All right, so when I code, like when I score, you'll see me like circle things. Like this, I'm circling because for me, when I'm reading the rest of the that body paragraph, I'm going back to look at that circle and going, okay, are they talking about crisis? Like that's the big idea for that section, right? Did I tell you about my checks and minuses? When I score, you'll see a check, which means I'm right there with you. You'll see a check minus where I'm like, there's something in there that's good, but then it kind of goes off at some point. There's a dash, which means it's summary and not even needed. There's an X, which just means that's just plain wrong. Okay, or I'm like, I told you not to do that. Sometimes you might get 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 this. Sometimes you might get that. Okay? If I write more than one ugh, then I want you in your head hearing me go, ugh! That's what I want to hear. Okay? Okay. All right, here we go. In the first half of the speech, Obama addresses the current crisis that we are facing. While mindful and grateful of the trust bestowed upon him, Obama understands that his oath is taken amidst gathering clouds and raging storms. His reference signifies the problems the country is involved in and need to take action like one would do in a raging storm. Okay. I'm missing this idea. And here, the idea of he references, I would say he compares because, that's a tail of bird compares. I would say compares just because now you're talking about the language, right? References is just the whole thing. Comparing is like the raging storm to us. So compares what to what. But that's good. We just missed the gathering clouds part. Later in the first half, Obama recognizes that our nation has only survived from the ideas of our forebears. Because of greed, irresponsibility, and the failure to make choices, our homes have been lost, jobs shed, businesses shuttered. Shuttered? Shattered? Shuttered? It does? Okay. As well as that our health care is too costly, our schools fail too many, emphasizing that the challenges we face are real. Okay, there is a whole lot in there. Okay. Obama lists out all the specific problems that America is facing to show his supporters, this is just the readers, that now he is in office, he will stick to his word. How does the language do that? And to show the non-supporters that he has plans to change the nation that will benefit everyone. Okay, very true. Doesn't talk about the language. All right, so let me tell you a couple of things, and we're going to do some activities next week, okay, that will help you see some things. You just don't know, you don't know. When we're looking for stuff to analyze, I always try to find at least these three things if they're in there. If there is a colon or a semicolon, I always try to analyze it because I look for what comes before and what comes after it, and then why this is used. That's all types of analysis, right? I also look for the dash. Y'all are so cute staring at me. That's a hint. There's a dash. So then I also look for dashes because I want to look for what comes before the dash, what comes after the dash, why the dash, right? Those are three things now I could do. I also want to look for lists because I can look for a list and I can look and say why each individual thing in the list, why the list in that order, and how does each thing in the list relate to each other. So that in itself is like 4 or 5 sentences from a piece of information. Understand? Y'all with me so far? Okay. So with this, you have homes have been lost. You have jobs shed. Jobs shed. The have been is understood. Right? Businesses shuttered. Okay. So we have, bless you, we have a list. Yes? Great piece of evidence. We also have parallelism. What's parallelism in math? Lines that don't intersect but go together, right? We have the same thing structurally in grammar. Noun verbs, yes? Things, actions. So you not only have a list, you have a parallel list. So then we could talk about, okay, why homes? Who do homes relate to? Okay? Jobs relate to. So think like grouping. Family is smaller. Jobs are going to go. So you're going to look at like communities or societies, right? And then you're going to look at like big corporations, right? So you're going to look at like our, what can I say there? family, communities, the whole United States, yes? Okay. Those are cute that still aren't writing anything down. Yes? So now you could talk about those. Now look at the verbs. What kind of action verbs are those? Are those actions that people do, or are those actions that are taken upon them? Okay. All right. Now, homes have been lost. If we're talking about the crisis, right? He's talking about all the current crisis. Homes have been lost. What current crisis does that reference? Okay. Jobs have been shed. What is that in reference to? Businesses shattered. Kind of both of those, right? It's like that plus that equals that. Oh, yeah. That's not a smiley face. That's an arrow. Okay. My friends, all those things that I wrote around the side is analysis of that evidence. Now, why does he talk about the homes lost, the jobs shed, and the businesses shattered in that order? Why homes being lost, does that come before businesses being shuttered?
Because you don't have to have a job, you have to have a place to live.
Yes. It's in like order of like your needs, right?
One thing leads to another.
Yeah. The relationship is that when you don't have that basic need met, those other things fall. Got me? Y'all, that's like 5-6 sentences right there of analysis. So we took the right piece of evidence, but then we said nothing. And then even after that, look, I mean, that in itself was enough. Then there's another piece of evidence there that is not even touched. And then there's another piece of evidence there that's not even touched. So I would have stopped at the first one. This in itself, our healthcare is too costly, our schools fail too many. Parallel again, another list would be a whole nother chunk. Got me? Okay. In the second half of the speech, Obama gives the audience sarcastic brain, cartoon Obama, handing stuff out, right? I need a better marker verb there. A plan gives the audience a plan to help him restore the nation from the crisis. So, I mean, like, we want to look at crisis and fixing, okay? And how does that show our strength? Those all things add up. So the assertion is going in the right way. All right, so here I'm like, so I have check, 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 check minus, check, check minus. It's this. Oh, good. Oh, good. Oh, good. Right? That, for me, falls in uneven. Does that make sense? Now, good news is that when you write, usually for most of us, we write ourselves into a better paper. So let's say it's uneven in the first, but then from the rest on, you are pretty solid. I kind of take that into account and say for the majority of the paper, you're even. I take that into account, okay? So if I'm looking at this score, is it upper half or lower half? Lower half says, man, I need about 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes with this kid to get them back on the right track. They don't really understand the whole idea of what's happening. Upper half going, they understand what's happening. I probably need anywhere from 5, 10, 20 minutes to fix this. 2, 3, 4 sentences, right? Moves me from one to the next. So where would we say? Upper half, lower half? Okay, so is it, we're going to take out the 4, right? And we're looking at 2 or 3. So then we say they both make textual references, right? Check. Okay, do they have commentary? They both have commentary, except for, do you feel like there's a relationship between the evidence and the thesis? Or do you feel that it repeats, oversimplifies, or misinterprets? I don't know if it misinterprets. I would say that it is more oversimplifying rather than uneven or limited. No, I think I just talked myself out. I think it's a 3 minus. I'm going to say that this is more uneven and limited. With me? Now, that right there took me like 5 minutes to explain to you. I score and grade it in probably under a minute. Okay. All right, here we go. When President Obama was elected in the late 2000s, America was at war with countries in the Middle East and was also in a time of economic downfall due to the Great Recession, creating many problems within the U.S. 2009, the recently elected President Obama addressed the nation through his inaugural speech in order to imply the unity needed to repair a fragmented state. Okay, I'm good. In the first half of the speech, President Obama discusses problems that our nation faces. He recalls the 44 prior presidents who have taken the oath in times of peace and points out that every so often the oath is taken amidst gathering clouds and raging storms. His analogy compares the highs and lows of society to the unpredictableness of nature. Helping the voters, those who voted for and against him, and those who did not vote at all, recognize the hardship our country faces by portraying the idea that our nation is under stress and future problems are inevitable. Great first chunk. Later, President Obama acknowledges the violence and hatred within our society, stating that our economy is badly weakened due to our collective failure to make hard choices and prepare the nation for a new age. Obama parallels the ideas of violence and greed as something that is socially acceptable and hindering us from moving forward, allowing the government to recognize the problems rooted in the selfishness and irresponsibility of our nation. Good. In there like another like and part, violence and something that kind of relates to that too. I think somewhere. So what I like is this chunk, this part was analyzed. That was not analyzed. But that all relates back to the violence and hatred. I'm fine with that. In the second half of the speech, President Obama encourages the nation that the problems our country faces will be resolved. So problems and how to fix them. And then that goes back to unity. All right. That for me is the math check. When I talk to you in a minute about like, go back and do your math check. Does what I prove in my body paragraph support the big idea of my assertion? Do my two assertions prove my big idea in my thesis, right? So how do we achieve unity? Through addressing our problems. How do we achieve unity? Through our resolve to fix them. Works for me. Upper half, lower half? I'd say that's a solid 3. Could it be higher with another paragraph? Yeah. If we continued on. The early 2000s was a period characterized by a growing economic crisis as well as increased international tensions in the Iraq War. As of 2009, in an effort to solve these problems, President Barack Obama delivered his inaugural address in order to use past and present to redefine? Reedify. Duh. I don't know if that word fits. To consider or make an abstract idea or concept real or concrete. I don't want to get that. I guess I have to. I know I'm here. Miss it. Yes. Yes. Thanks. When we're done, go up to C202. Okay. In question marking that. But I'm going to move forward. In the first half of the speech, President Obama analyzes the shortcomings of our nation. Firstly, Obama explains that many past presidents have been placed into an environment with peace and prosperity. In that quotes, right? No. Yes? No. That's just the reference of the still waters and the tides, right? Okay. However, He states that every so often the oath is taken amidst gathering clouds and raging storms. In this quote, Obama uses a metaphor to concede to the weakened state of our country. Okay. Furthermore, he uses the term gathering clouds. Okay. So if you see me write a DQ by it, that's a double quote. You've already quoted it once and now you're quoting it again. Right? So we need to find a way to not double quote that. In order to appeal to the idea that there are accumulating problems posing a growing threat to America, just as those accumulating clouds suggest whatever, right? So you have to tell me, what do gathering clouds suggest? You have to tell me that. On the other hand, the raging storms alludes to the perception that America has unresolved issues from the past that continue to impair America's ability to succeed. How does it do that? So you're absolutely right, but we just need that connection of what do raging storms mean, right? So just as we prepare for storms that are acts of nature that we don't understand how to deal with or something like that, right? Likewise, when presenting the facts of the failures of America, Obama suggests that the lack of confidence due to the crisis is causing a nagging fear that America's decline is inevitable, that the next generation must lower its sights. In this quote, stop doing that, Obama observes that America's habits have led to a growing feeling of hopelessness in our nation that has proceeded to the idea that America is spiraling into a failing society. Moreover, it is evident that the presence is used in order to emphasize the idea that present decisions will affect the future prosperity. Again, not wrong, just all summary. We're not addressing the specifics of the language in there at all. In the second half of the speech, President Obama, do y'all know my pet peeve? Did I tell y'all that? Y'all one of the classes? Stop using the word emphasizes. Says nothing. The necessity of determination. Okay. So determination, shortcomings. I still don't know if that word works. Upper half, lower half. I don't think it oversimplifies. I would say it's more limited. So I would say 3 minus. The early 2000s were full of major tragedies, like the terrorist attacks on 9/11 or Hurricane Katrina. These events, that's a run-on right there. These events ultimately led to a necessity of change. In 2009, President Barack Obama delivered, how do we go from change to Obama? President Barack Obama delivered his inaugural address calling for a new era of responsibility in order to reconstruct America. Okay. In the first half of his speech, Obama recognizes America's crisis. Obama explains that the presidential oath has been taken during rising tides of prosperity and the still waters of peace, while also recognizing that he has taken the oath amidst gathering clouds and raging storms. He uses the analogy of water, there's the language, to current events, to compare the unpredictable tendencies of water with the well-being of the nation. Got it. The little control that we as the people have over problems that we face in America, while highlighting the sole power we have over how we respond to these issues. Like we do with blank. Later in the first half, Obama introduces the difficulties we encounter and that the challenges we face are real, they are serious, and they are many. He uses this listing to help his audience to understand the importance of these problems. That says nothing. This reaffirms that the current problems we suffer are not going away, but instead will be met head on. How does the language do that? So that's summary. In the second half of the speech, Obama challenges the nation to make a change. Change, crisis, reconstruct. Good. Okay, upper half, lower half. I'm going to say that it's more I'm going to say this one saved it from being a, oh my God. I'm going to say it's a 3 minus. Yes. Check out. All right. I'm not answering any more phone calls. All right. Here we go. Amidst economic decline and the continuation of the Afghanistan war during the previous presidency, voting Americans had high expectations for newly elected Barack Obama. In 2009, President Barack Obama emphasizes the need for a new era of responsibility in his inaugural address in order to show the potential of the nation. Okay? Good. In the first half of the speech, Obama illustrates the hardships America has faced. Obama reflects on the past 43 presidencies and how some of them began during tides of prosperity and peace. However, his oath was taken amidst gathering clouds and raging storms. He uses the analogy tides of prosperity to symbolize that America has not always been facing hardships and was prosperous during times like the reconstruction of America after the Civil War. Then he uses the analogy of gathering clouds, so we have a lot of double quoting. Y'all will kind of move out of that naturally, it's fine. To represent the oncoming issues that America is about to face, such as the peak of the Afghanistan war, terrorism in the United States, and economic downturn. Good. Later, Obama lists the challenges America was facing at the time and concedes that a time of crisis is near. He recognizes the sapping of confidence across the nation and nagging fear that America's decline is inevitable. He used the analogy of sapping confidence to symbolize the draining of the optimistic views of the nation from the crisis that have been sprouting. I love the little sprouting because we're talking about nature, and the language of sprouting is in nature. Clever. He uses a semicolon to link the ideas of losing confidence and the fears for America together to concede that difficult times are upon the nation, but uses this as a call to action for the next generation of voting Americans to rise up and fix the issues from their predecessors. Throughout the first half of the speech, Obama continually uses analogies to nature to demonstrate the unpredictability of the current issues the nation faces, such as terrorism, economic decline, and wars. So what I love about this is this ties in all of the above. However, in nature, all storms eventually pass and return to clear skies. He uses this to demonstrate to the disgruntled Americans who want to see change in their society that right now they are in the middle of the storm of issues and they need to come together and work to initiate the change in order to return to prosperous times of America. In the second half of Obama's speech, he attempts to give his audience hope and strength by reflecting on the nation's past mistakes in order to inspire change. Go ahead. Raise your hand if you're in that group. It's good. It's thorough. Would it keep the 4? It could if the second body paragraph. Now, if the second body paragraph wasn't as thorough as that, it would probably not drop because we don't score down, but it would probably go like to a high 3, right? If we can't keep that consistency and that level of analysis. Really good. Are y'all like, oh no? All right. In 2009, President Obama delivered his inaugural address to the nation calling for a new era of responsibility and hope. He did this in order to inspire the nation and instill a sense of nationalism in the country. Okay, first of all, I'm going to say follow my structure. Do what I tell you to do. What I tell you to do is concrete plus in order to plus abstract. One sentence. Too many ands in here, and I'm not real sure what the abstract is. America in the early 2000s was in turmoil, still shaken from the events of 9/11 and suffering from the crash of the stock market. What is supposed to be your first sentence of your body paragraph? It's supposed to be what? Is that an assertion? That probably should have gone up there. Citizens were starting to lose hope and faith in the country. So I still have no assertion. So again, I'm giving a big fat ugh because it's not following what I told you to do. Obama directly calls out the problem at hand, stating, again, that's not embedding the way that we talked about, that we are in the midst of a crisis. Our nation is at war against a far-reaching network of violence and hatred. Our economy is badly weakened. In saying this, Obama, this I know, is leading me directly to summary. Obama didn't intend to scare the people. He showed, this is a run-on, he showed he isn't blind to the problems going on in the world. He is critically aware of the hardship the nation is facing and yet still keeps his optimism. Double ugh. No embedding of text. This gives insight on how the president wants the nation to progress. Again, another run-on. That's all summary. In the second half of the speech, President Obama shines a light on, oh my God. That is called a colloquialism, sheds a light on, didn't I tell you all that? My sarcastic brain and how I see, and there's Obama with the flashlight, yeah. So that's a colloquialism. Times of old, calling back to a time when Americans fought tooth and nail. Guess what that is? I see Obama and Americans with nails. Sorry, Siri, stop talking to me. Tooth and nail for every little achievement. I don't know what that means. And then this, we weren't even supposed to do. Upper half, lower half. Lower. Summarizes text. Without a reference to the thesis, I say this. So I would say we're a 1. No thesis, no assertion. Summary to text. The year prior to the inauguration, the United States suffered an economic crash as well as a housing market crash. In 2009, newly elected President Barack Obama addresses the nation in order to inspire hope for the future. In the first half of his speech, President Obama stresses the current struggles that the United States faces. He emphasizes that America has been through tides of prosperity and the still waters of peace. Actually, that's not what he's doing. He's not saying America has done that. What is he saying? Who is he talking about? The presidents. So it has been, so it must be with this generation of Americans. And he conveys that that's a big jump from those two. President Obama uses the semicolon and the still waters of peace and clouds of storms to contrast the ideas that he is beginning past an America that is in despair. I don't know what that means. Obama is paralleling the raging storms to America persevering through past conflicts. How and why does the storms do that? He addresses the still waters of peace and the raging storms as a way to confront the current recession that is plaguing our country. How does it do that? Later on, President Obama directly addresses the economic crisis that threatens the welfare of the people. He highlights the irresponsibility of the part of some have led to the consequences of homes being lost, jobs shed, business shattered. Obama directs the failure of our economy towards the collective irresponsibility of the nation. That's summary. How does the language do that? Confronting the nation as our current conflicts have led to an undesirable, problematic future. He uses the guilt and fear of the people to inspire them. I don't think so. In the second half of the speech, President Obama lays out his plan to improve the well-being of the United States. I'd say this one is repeating, oversimplifying, or misinterpreting. I have one more? One more. Let me do one more, and then we can chat real quick. Throughout 2008, the United States experienced its worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. Coinciding this the first African American president, Barack Obama, is elected into office. It's a little awkward. On July 21st, 2009, Obama delivers his inaugural speech in order to lead the nation into change. In the first half of his speech, Obama addresses the weaknesses our nation has allowed to go on for too long. He recalls the immense endurance of America as they have carried on through global turmoil and war due to the sustained faith to the ideals of our forebears and true to our founding documents. The principle of staying true to a nation's founding values gives the opposing side comfort in changes the new administration will bring, as adjustments will stay true to the initial morals of the United States. Okay. For the supporters, this brings reassurance to the ideals they believed would provide improvements to the nation in which they reside. Furthermore, Obama acknowledges the indicators of a crisis as a sapping of confidence, to which is a burden of the nation's march to recovery. The idea of forecasting a cynical future provides a desire for change. Okay, when witnessing these persistent flaws, the upcoming generation is ingrained with dread due to the country's projected downward trajectory. Obama unveils his plan to systematically remodel the nation. I think those are really closely together. I would say it's a 3 minus. All right, 2 minutes. What questions do you have? Yes?
How do I get around double quoting? Like, how would you?
You guys are going to get to that eventually. It's going to be just like, you guys are going to see that you can start to embed evidence with analysis. So you can take those pieces and then analyze and then continue. So you're going to start to where you're embedding an analysis. You embed with your analysis.
Oh, okay.
We'll get there. I'm okay with the double quoting for now. We'll get there.
Okay.